What's going on, everybody? I'm your host, Ben Ballion, back with another episode of the Sports Pod. And in today's episode, I'm going to recap everything that went down on Wild Card Weekend in the NFL, from Sam Darnold laying an egg on Monday Night Football to Jaden Daniels playing like a seasoned vet in his rookie season and leading the Commanders to victory. I'll get into all of it on the other side of the intro. Hit it.
DiVincenzo at three. Bang! Bang! Got the wall. He jumps. It's gone. He did it. He did it. Pete Alonso with the most memorable home run of his career.
All right, getting into the episode. And let's start with the first game of Wild Card Weekend. The Houston Texans taking on the Los Angeles Chargers at home. The Chargers were favored in this one, but the Houston Texans came out with a win at home, 32-12. They take the first game of the weekend. Now let me just start with this. Justin Herbert looked flat out awful in this one. I mean, I know he doesn't have a receiving core. Ladd McConkey's his top receiver, and there's nothing against Ladd McConkey. He shouldn't be a top receiver on any team in the National Football League. But he is for the Chargers, and he was for this game. He did have an 85-yard touchdown pass, but it wasn't enough. Justin Herbert, 4 interceptions. That's not good enough to win you any game in the NFL. I don't care who you're playing and who you are. 4 interceptions is unacceptable, and it's not going to work ever. Flat out. So if Justin Herbert wants to be successful in the playoffs, I would suggest he gets his act together, because this is 2 times in a row now that he has struggled in the playoffs. First, a couple years back against the Jags when they allowed like a 20-plus point comeback, and now to the Texans laying an egg and just not performing well. And I get the Chargers weren't supposed to be here this year. And if I had to give them a grade on the season, I'd probably give them an A-. I mean, they weren't supposed to get to the playoffs in the first place. So just them getting to the playoffs is a feat in itself. I mean, Ladd McConkey and Will Dissly were your top 2 receivers this year. You had a new head coach. Yeah, your Joey Bosa was very injured last year, I believe. And same with Khalil Mack. You completely revamped your running back room, just stealing the old Ravens running backs in J.K. Dobbins and Gus Edwards. They had a good season. Don't get me wrong. Justin Herbert just couldn't do it in the playoffs. And overall, the team couldn't do it because the defense could have been better. Allowing 30 points is not necessarily a recipe for success either. But on the Texans side of the ball, I mean, I don't know how they won this game. I was not expecting them to win this game. I mean, they're going to get run off the field once they go to Arrowhead and face the Chiefs. I have no doubt in my mind about that. CJ Stroud is not a good enough quarterback to go to the AFC Championship rather, especially against a guy like Patrick Mahomes, who is the best quarterback in the world and will lead his team to victory and lead his team back to the Super Bowl. That's my prediction right now. Things could change. I'll have a full divisional rounds prediction episode coming out probably on Friday, so make sure you stay tuned for that. But for the Texans, I mean, CJ Stroud, he didn't have the best year. Last year was a lot better. This year, 66% completion percentage. That's the postseason. Let me look at the regular season now. This regular season, 63% completion, 3,700 yards, 20 touchdowns, 12 interceptions. So overall, a solid year. I mean, last year he played better. The 12 interceptions for me is just too much. Like, he's throwing at a ratio of 5-3 for touchdowns to interceptions. That's not good enough. It's not good enough to really be successful. He fell into a bad sophomore slump. I mean, he was supposed to be better. Like, Tank Dell got hurt after a couple, pretty deep into the season. They traded for Stephon Diggs. They had Nico Collins. I don't really know what the problem is. I get they lost Devin Singletary to the Giants. They lost Danielle Hunter. But that's a running back and a defensive lineman, so it shouldn't be affecting CJ Stroud too much. So let's just compare to his 2023 rookie season stats. Again, 63% completion, 4,100 yards though, and then 23 touchdowns to 5 interceptions. So he upped his touchdowns last year, but he also brought down his interceptions. Last year is closer to what I thought he was going to be this year. I thought he was going to give you a similar stat line to that, a similar production level to that. But it didn't happen, and that's a problem for the Texans, because how much better are you going to get? I mean, Stephon Diggs is going to be a free agent. Who knows if he stays in Houston? I have my doubts about that. Who knows what Tank Dell is going to be? He's had 2 season-ending injuries in both years of his career. How much longer is it going to take for C.J. Stroud to really have his breakout game? Because if they're going to beat the Chiefs, which I doubt they do, he's going to have to have his biggest game of the season. He didn't play all too well this regular season. He played fine, don't get me wrong, but we were expecting more for him. We were expecting a big sophomore season. So now is he going to be able to break out and have a big-time AFC divisional game against the Chiefs? I mean, they were underdogs at home. I don't know if there's been a spread for this game. It is. KC's favored by 8.5 points. So, I don't know. I just can't see the Texans winning. And even in this one, I'm so surprised that they got out of the first round, out of the wild card. I don't know. It shocked me, and it shocked the rest of the world. All right, let's get to the next matchup. Steelers and Ravens in M&T Bank Stadium down in Baltimore. The Ravens come out on top 28-14. They beat their division rivals, the Steelers, the AFC North divisional battle. And the Ravens were really just in control the entire game. It felt like every time, like they were never down. They always led this game. The problem I saw with the game, though, for the Ravens aspect, is that they never put the nail in the coffin. They never finished it. They never put the Steelers out of their misery. They were constantly letting them in the game. In the second half, the Ravens came into the half up 21-7, I believe. No, it was 21-0. To start the second half. At one point in the second half, the game was 21-14. The Steelers were making a comeback. Russell Wilson and George Pickens were connecting downfield. It seemed like the Steelers were going to make a comeback win and comeback bid and win this game after they've been falling apart the last couple weeks. The Ravens eventually scored another touchdown. The defense locked in, didn't allow the Steelers to score again. But you get the point. This was a game the whole time. And a lot in the third quarter, it was just the Ravens running the ball, not really trying to put the nail in the coffin, just playing on cruise control almost. And that's not going to work against the Bills. They've got to come out firing. They've got to come out and play hard for all 60 minutes of this game if they want a chance to win. Derrick Henry and Lamar Jackson both have to have big games next week. Because even if you do get Zay Flowers back, who knows what he's going to be on a sprained knee. I mean, this is probably... I'm gonna check for an injury report, but he was doubtful all week coming into the game, and now he's... I don't know. We'll see what it is. Wednesday, he didn't practice today. He didn't practice today. So today's Wednesday. I don't know if he plays. I feel like he has to. He's got to play, right? He's not going to sit out 2 playoff games, one to the Bills, where it's going to be an all-out war. Against the Steelers, you kind of thought, you kind of knew he would sit out. Not sit out. You kind of knew that they would be all right. You kind of knew that they were going to be able to cruise past the Steelers, who have been falling apart over the last couple weeks. I mean, Mike Tomlin got his winning record, and then George Pickens got hurt. Him and Russell Wilson have had sort of a disconnect. It hasn't been smooth sailing from there. And starting getting to the Steelers side of the ball, they've got a lot of question marks this offseason. If I'm the Steelers front office, I would say you might want to tank next season. Maybe not a tank, but how long are you going to be able to do it with just stopgap quarterbacks? Because at the end of the day, they're not going to get somebody in free agency that's really going to elevate this level of team. They're not going to get a franchise quarterback. Sure, they might be able to sign a Kirk Cousins. Sure, they might be able to sign a Sam Darnold. But I don't think either of those guys are franchise quarterbacks right now. I think the only way you could really get a franchise quarterback is through the draft or you trade for J.J. McCarthy, and I'm not a big fan of J.J. McCarthy's, so I wouldn't do that. So maybe next year you're not the most successful, you'll lose some games, and then you take the quarterback that you want. But if you do that, you'll be set up for the next, 10 years, 8, 9 years. That's what it bet you. The last time you had a franchise quarterback was Ben Roethlisberger, and Mike Tomlin knew how to develop Roethlisberger. Mike Tomlin's a really good head coach, and you get him with a young quarterback. I think that's a recipe for success. And there's no way the Steelers trade Mike Tomlin. It's just not happening. So the Steelers do have question marks, but I feel like they're also in a spot where they might be bad for 1 year, but then they'll be good. But it'll set them up for the next decade if they're bad next year and get their quarterback. And who knows? They might not hit on the quarterback. But I mean, the last time they drafted a quarterback, I believe it was Roethlisberger. And they definitely hit on Big Ben. So there's that. Great name for Ben Roethlisberger, by the way, too. All right, let's get to the next matchup. The Broncos and the Bills. I mean, I'm not going to spend too much time on this game. 31-7 Buffalo wins. It's taking care of business at this point. If the Bills lost that game, it'd be an absolute disappointment in the season. I knew the Broncos were going to keep it close. I knew the Broncos were going to keep this a game the whole way through. There was no way that the Bills would just jump out to a lead and hold it the whole way. That just wasn't going to happen. And after a quarter, the Broncos led. And after 2 quarters, they only trailed 10-7. And then in the second half, the Broncos didn't score for the final 3 quarters, by the way. They scored one touchdown on one of the first plays of the game. We go to the first quarter, the first play of the game, a 65-yard touchdown, and then they didn't score after that. But you know what? It was a game pretty much the whole way through. There was always the chance for the Broncos to come back. And for Bo Nix, what a rookie season. I mean, a disappointing playoff game, but they weren't ready to win a playoff game. They weren't supposed to be here. Marvin Mims is their leading receiver. That's an issue. You're not going to win an AFC playoff game like that. NFC, you might be able to sneak by. You might be able to win one. You might be able to get a win against an NFC South team, but not in the AFC, and especially not against the Bills. The Bills are looking to win a Super Bowl. It's got to happen this year for the Buffalo Bills. There's no way they should be doing. There's nothing else on their mind than winning a Super Bowl. It's gotta be this year. If they don't get over the hump right now, if they don't get to the Super Bowl, get to the AFC Championship, it's a disappointing season. I mean, they're the 2 seed this year. Last year they had the easiest path. I think they were also the 2 seed, but they played the Chiefs at home, which makes things a whole lot easier. Because if they get to the AFC Championship, they're gonna have to go out to Arrowhead to play the Chiefs. They're not going to be able to stay home. They got one more home game the rest of the way. And it's coming up this week against the Ravens. That's going to be an awesome game. Stay tuned for my predictions on Friday. I already mentioned that. But why not mention it again? Josh Allen, big time game in this one. 20 for 26, 272 and 2 touchdowns. That's what he's got to do. He's got to keep doing that all the way through. It's got to be him throwing at Dalton Knox, throwing at Amari Cooper, handing the ball off to James Cook. James Cook, 23 carries, 120 yards, and a touchdown in this one. Big time James Cook. One of the most underrated running backs in the National Football League. He is so good, and he gets no credit. No credit whatsoever, but he is one of the better running backs in the league. He's one of those guys that he's going to fly under the radar. He's not going to have a huge contract, but when you hand him the ball, he'll get the job done for you a lot of the time. And he did that in this one. But like I said, for the Bills, it's taking care of business. The Broncos aren't ready to win. This is like the plan. Once you're a good enough team to make the playoffs. The first year is fun. You're not usually really ready to win a playoff game. And So it's just fun. You're seeing, oh wow, we're in the playoffs. This is crazy. This is different. We're never here. But then the second year, there's expectations, and you're supposed to win a playoff game, and you're supposed to be in the AFC divisional round. You're supposed to be in the AFC championship. The Broncos shouldn't be in the AFC championship, but that's just what I'm just an example. But now for the Broncos, what are they going to do this offseason? They got to get more receivers. There's a lot of teams that need receivers this offseason. The Broncos would be an awesome fit for T. Higgins. That if they're willing to splurge and spend the money, they do have Pat Surtain on a 4-year, $96 million contract. But other than that, they don't have any big contracts. So they might have the money to spend on a T. Higgins. And if that's the case, why not do it? You give Bo Nix a big arm, a guy who can get down the field, a guy who's a talented route runner, a guy with really good hands, a really good receiver in this league. It seems like a perfect fit to me, especially with Sean Payton, an offensive-minded head coach. So that might be the move for the Broncos. But going back to the Bills, Josh Allen right now has to be firing on all cylinders. They have to come out firing. This Ravens game that they're going to play is going to be such a toss-up that both teams have to be on the top of their game if either of them wants to win. If one team isn't playing some of the best football they've played all year, the other's going to win, and that's just the fact. Both of them have to play pretty much the best games they've played this season. If we look at the Ravens game from earlier this season, let me find it. They played early in the season. They played in week 4. The Ravens won by 15, 35-10. We'll see if it's a repeat here. But the other thing I think is that whoever wins this game will get MVP. If Josh Allen wins, it'll be him. And if Lamar Jackson wins, it'll be Lamar. I know it's a regular season award, but there's no way the committee watches these games and doesn't get swayed by them. And I'll give my take on the MVP right now. I think it's Josh Allen. If you take Josh Allen and Lamar Jackson off their respective teams and you replace them with Mike White, the Bills are the worst team. And that means Josh Allen is more valuable to the Bills. The MVP shouldn't be the best player. It's the most valuable player. And the Bills would be way worse than the Ravens if they didn't have Josh Allen. Ravens have a better head coach, better running back, better defense, better, the receiver, and then the rest of it's pretty much a toss-up. But the Ravens are definitely the better team, even without Lamar Jackson. So that's where I get it from. But I think I can respect it if you say it's... I think it's Josh Allen, but I can respect you if you say it's Lamar Jackson. All right, let's get to Packers-Eagles. One of the better games, I guess, of the week. There was a lot of duds. And, why does every team play except the 1 seeds? A wild card weekend should just be wild card teams. You look at the MLB. 6 out of the, however many, there's a lot of teams that make the MLB playoff now. 6 out of 15 teams play on wild card weekend, or the wild card series. You look in the NBA, you look in the play-in tournament. There's 4 teams from each side of the bracket. There's 6 that make the playoffs. So you look, that's 10 out of 22 teams, I guess. Yeah, 10 out of 22 teams that are playing. It's less than half. This one, there's only 2 teams out of... Math is hard. 2 teams out of the 16, 17 teams, right? Yeah, 16? Because... No, 6... 2 out of the 14 teams aren't playing, little calculation, brain error. 6 out of the 14 2 out of the 14 teams are the only teams that are not playing, which leaves the other 12 to play. Those aren't wild cards. That's the first round of the playoffs, man. And they used to call it Super Wild Card Weekend. It's ridiculous. I don't know. They need some kind of reformatting. Maybe just the last 2 teams play to get in, copy the MLB plan. But that's for Roger Goodell and his whole crew to discuss. Now we're going to talk some Packers-Eagles. 22-10. The Eagles win it. Jordan Love just did not have it in this one. I mean, we knew he was an overpay, right? Let's just get out of the way. We knew that contract was going to be an overpay. But 212 yards, that's all right. The problem I have, 3 interceptions. Jordan Love, that's quite a few interceptions, bud. That's a lot. I mean, you had Justin Herbert with 4. Somehow, 3 wasn't the top of the weekend. But like I said with Justin Herbert, you can't expect to win if you're throwing 3 interceptions. I know Christian Watson's hurt. I know Romeo Doubs got hurt. But I don't care who you're throwing to. It's just you reading defenses. It's not other people's fault. And you look at the receiving. I mean, Jaden Reed led the team. Josh Jacobs was 2. Dontavion Wicks had 39 yards. Tucker Kraft had 5 receptions. So they had solid receivers, and they threw the ball to, let me see, this is a lot. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Jordan Love threw the ball to 8 guys. That's quite a few. And compared to the 6, 7, right? Yeah, 7, or no. 1, 2, 3, no, 6. Compared to the 6 that Jalen Hurts threw to. So it's not like Green Bay played super terrible. It's just like that opening kickoff set the tone for this game. The Packers fumbling on the opening kickoff. Jalen Hurts makes short work of the short field. Scores a touchdown, starts the game off on the right foot for the Eagles. The problem I have with the Eagles, though, and it's similar to the Ravens, they couldn't get offense going in the second half, the second quarter. It was bad. They were getting booed off the field at home, and they were winning. That's how bad it's got to be. It was like a streak of probably 3-4 straight 3-and-outs for the Eagle offense. And then you got A.J. Brown reading a book on the sideline. It was quite an ugly scene for the majority of that game. Offense-wise, at least the Eagles did come out with a win, and I think they have enough to go to the Super Bowl. Because when you are winning after playing such bad offense like that, it just shows like their offense isn't going to be that bad again. Their offense isn't going to have that slow of a game again. So if they play their normal offense, they're gonna score more than 22 points, and they're gonna win games more convincingly. That's what I take away from it. The defense played really well too. The Eagles' defense is so good. I mean, you got guys like Cooper DeJean and Reed Blankenship in the secondary, but even you got a guy like Jalen Carter on the defensive line. Like, they haven't really missed on draft picks recently. They are such a good drafting team, such a smart team, and it sucks. I hate the Eagles. But they're going to go to the NFC Championship. Although I don't think the Rams are going to be a tough out. We'll get to the Rams game. That'll be the last game we talk about in this episode, but we'll get to it in a little bit. The Eagles are set up in a good spot right now. They've got a pretty solid path, pretty easy path if they want to get to the Super Bowl. But for the Packers, just taking a moment to talk about their season, I mean, it was confusing. Like, they were good. If you look at the Packers, they finished at 11-6. They played in the toughest division in football. 3 playoff teams from the NFC North. But I don't know, man. Jordan Love, he's real mediocre. I would say he's probably, he's better than mediocre. I would say I could probably list 9-10 quarterbacks in front of him. I would put Mahomes, Josh Allen, Jared Goff, Lamar Jackson. Mahomes, Josh Allen, Lamar Jackson, Jared Goff, Justin Herbert I would put in front of him. If you look, I don't know, maybe a Baker Mayfield, Jaden Daniels, that puts him at 8, 9, 10, anywhere in that range. There's probably a guy that I'm not thinking of. Jalen Hurts is probably in front of him. So he's really mediocre, but when you look at his contract, it's not really an overpay, because if you look at what the other guys are making in the NFL, if you look at a Trevor Lawrence's contract, if you look at Justin Herbert's contract, it's not an overpay. It's very relative to what those guys are. The market is very saturated right now, and the guys that are signing their contracts are getting a lot of money, but there is a part of it where it's like he kind of has to be better. If you're making that much money, you should be better, and you should be one of the top quarterbacks in the league. I feel like they need a veteran presence on the receiving core, and really just on the offensive side in general. I know they have Josh Jacobs, but I would really like to see a veteran wide receiver, like a DeAndre Hopkins, maybe go over there. That might be the guy for the Packers if they could have like a dream scenario. Maybe an Amari Cooper that would be a little bit more expensive. They need a Viking. They need a veteran. I don't know why I'm thinking about the Vikings. Well, I know I am because Sam Darnold was pretty awful in that game. But we'll get to that one last in this episode because I have some stuff to say about Sam Darnold. Right now, though, let's get to the rookie quarterback, Jaden Daniels, playing like a seasoned veteran and absolutely destroying the Buccaneer defense. So if you look at the score, 23-10, Washington wins. Jaden Daniels in his rookie season is going to the NFC divisional round. He's going to play in Detroit, and he's going to play the Lions. The Lions defense is still banged up. Their offense is pretty much back to normal now. I don't know, is David Montgomery going to be back? He might not. He might not be. But their offense, we've seen, yeah, he's done for the year. Torn ACL, MCL, had surgery on it. But we've seen this Lions offense, it's succeeded without David Montgomery. Jahmyr Gibbs stepped up. The receiving core for the Lions is just so good. You got Amon-Ra St. Brown, you got Jameson Williams, you got what's their tight end's name? I don't know why I'm blanking on it, but their tight end's really good. This is gonna eat at me now. Let me look at this box. Let me look at the Lions. Let me look at their stats. Receiving. Samuel Porter. I don't know why I couldn't think of that. But you look at that lineup, and it's like, man, they can play. They can beat anybody. They're so talented up and down that lineup. It is like, I don't know. It's like not. They have a scary defense and offense because they did get Alex Anzalone back, and they got not Aiden Hutchinson's not going to come back, but they've got a bunch of guys on the defensive side of the football. Of the football, they're really good, and they're going to be able to beat anyone. I think that's my pick for the Super Bowl right now. I think NFC Championship is Eagles-Lions after the wild card round. So, you know, that's my pick. And for the Commanders, though, awesome showing. And for the Bucks, it's like, what is really the ceiling of this core? How far can the core of Baker Mayfield and Mike Evans and Chris Godwin, I know Chris Godwin was hurt, but Chris Godwin, how far can that core get? Because they've been together for about 4 or 5 years now, and including when Tom Brady, before he retired, I guess, because Mike Evans and Chris Godwin have been there a long time. But it's like they have never really gotten past the second round without Tom Brady. They haven't done it. So what is their ceiling? They're not a Super Bowl team. They'll go to the playoffs pretty much every year just because they play in such a soft division that it's simple. They just have to win 8 or 9 games and they're in. But they're never going to win. They need to really have a culture shock, whether it's firing their head coach and promoting Liam Cohen to head coach, or it's maybe changing the defense, firing a couple coordinators, bringing in some new coordinators. They need a culture shock. They need a change in Tampa Bay because what they're doing is not good enough. I get you. The coaches are going to stay after going to the playoffs every year. But do you want to just go to the playoffs or do you want to win in the playoffs? Because right now, they're not winning in the playoffs and they haven't for a long time. And it's a little bit of an issue. It's quite an issue. So I don't know what the Buccaneers do, but for the Commanders, they are in a prime spot. with Dan Quinn and Jaden Daniels and Brian Robinson and all the guys on that defense, Terry McLaurin. They do need a veteran receiver this offseason after they inevitably get blown out by the Lions. But for a rookie campaign and a first-year head coach, first year with Dan Quinn, I would say it's an absolute success. 10 out of 10. Really, 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 really good season. I don't know what I would improve. The only thing that could get better is, of course, the Super Bowl. But that's not going to happen in Jaden Daniels' rookie season. But he is playing like it's not his rookie season. He's playing like he's a seasoned vet. He's playing like he's been in this league for a long time, and this is just what he does. And it is so much fun to watch, and it is just awesome. Jaden Daniels is the truth. He is going to bring the Commanders to the promised land one day if the front office can build a good team around him. All right, let's get to the last matchup, a wild card weekend, the Monday Night Football matchup. The Vikings and the Rams from Arizona? Yeah, I feel bad for everybody out in LA. It's a terrible situation. But apparently the show must go on, and the Rams are going to keep playing football. They win this one 27-9. Sam Darnold, 2 weeks in a row now, has just played terrible. And the two biggest games of his career, he has not been able to play good football. He has been awful. The first time around against the Lions in that Week 18 Sunday Night Football game, and then this time against the Rams. It was just not good. I guess he threw for 245 and a tutty. He threw an interception, but 25 for 40, not good enough. He was just not good enough, and overall, the Vikings weren't good enough. You look at the running backs, Aaron Jones, 13 carries for 48 yards, led the team. That's not good enough. You got to be better than that. TJ Hawkinson led in receiving, 5 receptions for 64 yards, and the lone touchdown of the game for the Vikings. And they missed an extra point. So there's always that. Oh, it was a failed 2-point conversion. My bad. But Sam Darnold was not good. Rams win a home playoff game. They're going to be moving on. I did not think that the Rams will win a playoff game. I thought it was a disgrace that the Vikings didn't get to play at home after winning 14 games. And it still is. Because they missed out on the Skull. They have a real home field advantage. They have a pretty good fan base out there in Minnesota. And they didn't get to utilize it despite winning 14 games. But the Rams are a threat. The Rams are not going to be an easy out whatsoever for the Philadelphia Eagles. The Rams are a team that is going to give the Eagles a run for their money. If they can find a way to neutralize Saquon Barkley, Jalen Hurts still seemed dinged up. He was playing really safe in that Packers game. He wasn't playing to his full potential. I don't know what the pass game is going to look like. I don't know what the tush push is going to look like. And I don't know what Jalen Hurts, his rushing attack, his scrambles are going to look like. So the Rams might be able to load up on Saquon Barkley and then fall back into coverage on A.J. Brown and Devontae Smith. That's a possibility. I think the Rams have a good chance at winning this game. I don't think they do, but there is that chance. And for the Vikings, they have an interesting situation this offseason. Do they franchise tag Sam Darnold? Do they give Sam Darnold a contract after he lost the two biggest games of the season in Week 18 and made an early exit in the wild card round? I don't think you do. I think you give him the franchise tag and have a quarterback competition between J.J. McCarthy and Sam Darnold in training camp next year. That's my take on it. They could be, and I only think that Sam Darnold should get a second chance because they should be in win-now mode right now. They have TJ Hawkinson. They have Aaron Jones. They have Jordan Addison. They have Justin Jefferson. I mean, they have such a good offense that they can win right now. They have a good defense with Danielle Hunter, with some other guys. They can do it right now if they have the quarterback. And Sam Darnold seemed like that quarterback this year, besides the last 2 weeks. And are those last 2 weeks gonna keep him away from Minnesota? Is he, because he's gonna get a contract somewhere. He might not get as big a contract as he was gonna get originally from a team, but he's still gonna get a big contract. And for Sam Darnold, it's rough, but he's still, I would assume he can test the market and get a starting job somewhere. I mean, I would assume the Raiders are gonna look for a young guy in the draft. Maybe the Steelers want to sign him if they don't want to tank next year. Maybe, trying to think what other teams can need a quarterback. Maybe the Jets will go after him. Maybe the Giants go after him. There's a lot of options. But Sam Darnold will get a job, but he lost a lot of money with losing these last 2 games. But for me personally, I think the Vikings will tag him and they'll have a quarterback competition. And the Rams, really good job, and they're going to be a tough out come playoff time. All right, that's going to do it for this episode. If you enjoyed, please consider commenting, subscribing, liking, following, and make sure you check out all the links in the description to check out my socials. If you want to have your sports questions and takes heard on the Sports Pod, you can do so by leaving me a voicemail at 848-305-8073, and make sure you keep it locked with the Sports Pod.